The courtyard at the Royal Palace of Madrid was blazing white stone and echoing footsteps, and I was half melting in long pants. Next to me, this Instagram travel girl in a backless crop top and glitter skirt posed with one leg up on the marble. She stared at the sign about appropriate attire for royal premises and went, "So, do they mean emotionally or like clothing-wise?" The guard just blinked, then slowly pointed at her entire upper body, like he was using a laser pointer in a lecture. She sighed, grabbed her scarf, and wrapped it around herself like a reluctant burrito. I swear, even the statues looked relieved. Deadpan, the guard muttered in Spanish, basically. Influencers are our hottest security threat, man. In Bangkok's Grand Palace, the gold was so bright it felt like the sun had roommates. A classic, overconfident dad in cargo shorts marched up in a sleeveless American flag tank top, biceps out like a political statement. He saw the "no exposed shoulders" sign and told his family, "Relax, they'll make an exception for freedom." 2 minutes later, he was standing there in a rented lime green button-up that barely closed, his tank top hidden. His teenage son took one look and whispered, "Dad, you look like a retired lettuce." The whole family tried not to laugh, while the staff stayed professionally stone-faced. I just watched and thought, yeah, royal protocols always win, even against freedom cosplay. At Buckingham Palace's front gate, clouds hung low and tourists pressed against the railings like it was Black Friday. Patriot Uncle had on a blazer, shorts, white socks pulled to mid-calf, and dress shoes, like his bottom half rage quit the formal memo. When a staff member quietly reminded him about appropriate formal attire for the afternoon tour, he puffed his chest and said, "Back home. This is called business casual, young man." Everyone nearby went silent in that international language of "no, it's not." His niece muttered, "Back home where? The golf outlet?" while trying to drag him toward the gift shop. The staff guy very politely redirected him to the ticket office to discuss options. Honestly, somewhere in his family tree, an ancestor just closed a history book in disappointment. Kyoto's Imperial Villa Garden felt like a painting that forgot to end. Stone paths, moss, and soft wind. A college bro in a deep V-neck and ripped jeans kept adjusting his sunglasses like he'd ordered enlightenment on Uber Eats. At the gate, the attendant gently explained in clear English, "Please cover chest and knees inside the imperial grounds," and he went, "Oh, I thought the emperor would appreciate the drip." His friend just exhaled hard and handed him an emergency Uniqlo cardigan from the backpack. He put it on halfway, still chest out, and the attendant just smiled and gestured kindly to close it. Even the koi in the pond looked away like, "Bro, not here." Then some old Japanese grandpa coughed a laugh and said, "Style later, respect first. Otherwise you just look expensive and lost." Outside the royal palace gates in Fes, Morocco, the walls glowed gold against a sky that smelled like dust and oranges. Wellness. Karen floated up in a sheer linen dress and straw hat, holding a reusable water bottle like a moral certificate. When the officer explained she couldn't enter a nearby religious courtyard dressed like that, she blinked and said, "But this is breathable fabric. It's like respectful to my skin." The group guide stared, then carefully pointed to the sign showing covered shoulders and legs and offered her a rental cloak. She slipped it on dramatically, like she'd just been handed the cloak of limitation, and rolled her eyes for her Instagram story. A little local girl watched her, then tugged her mom's sleeve and whispered something, giggling. Nature didn't punish anyone, but the sun absolutely teamed up with the cloak to make that lesson sweaty. Inside the Versailles entrance hall, chandeliers glowed like they were built to intimidate your bloodline. I overheard a cruise tourist in a loud floral shirt explaining to his group, "Kings didn't actually care what people wore. That's just Disney stuff." A staff member in a suit quietly corrected him, explaining the old court etiquette and how clothing once literally decided who stood where. He nodded, pretending to understand, then whispered to his wife, "So you're saying I can't wear flip-flops to impress the king's ghost?" She smacked his arm and pointed to the no beachwear pictogram like it was a divine commandment. The tour moved on and he shuffled after them, flip-flops slapping in defeated rhythm. The guide just sighed under his breath, probably thinking, yeah, centuries of protocol, defeated daily by rubber shoes. Qasr Al Watan in Abu Dhabi glowed white and blue, like someone built a palace out of moonlight and spreadsheets. A business consultant in a flawless suit showed up with no idea about the no shorts under the robe rule, and of course was wearing tailored shorts. When security asked him to change, he actually said, "What if we streamline this process with tiered dress code packages?" The staff remained perfectly polite, offering him a proper covering and pointing to the on-site store. He stared at the robes like they were an inefficient workflow, then finally bought one and shuffled off. His colleague whispered, "Congrats, you just tried to upsell tradition." Bro, some places don't need optimization. They've been running just fine for a few dynasties. On the square outside Stockholm's royal palace, cool wind hit hard, and the guards looked carved out of quiet. A TikTok travel expert in an oversized hoodie and cycling shorts set up her tripod, ring light, the whole portable studio. A staffer reminded her about the dress guidelines for the chapel area and the no filming zones, and she went, "But my audience expects authenticity, like, this outfit is my brand." The staffer just nodded slowly and pointed at the sign again, completely immune to follower counts. She changed into a long coat and scarf, then filmed a dramatic story about being censored by monarchy aesthetic rules. A local teen scrolling nearby rolled his eyes so hard I swear I heard it. "Deadpan," his friend said. "Yeah, bro, the algorithm stops at the dress code sign too." At Amalienborg Palace in Copenhagen, the air smelled like rain and bicycle brakes. A retired rich couple stepped out of a black car, him in loafers and no socks, her in a sparkly cocktail dress, like they misread the invite as a royal casino night. When a guide gently explained the modest clothing expectations for the chapel visit, the husband smiled and said, "We thought Europe was more relaxed about these things." The guide answered calmly that the royal residence wasn't a cruise ship lounge and offered shawls. They wrapped themselves up, suddenly looking like two sequined burritos wandering through history. A nearby kid asked his mom why the shiny people looked so grumpy. She just whispered that money buys tickets, not context. In Amman's Royal Palace guest pavilion, jasmine and coffee hung in the air like a warm welcome. Florida man variant strutted in wearing a tank top, basketball shorts, and flip-flops, holding sunglasses like a trophy. When politely told to change into something more respectful, he shrugged and said, "But I wore my good flip-flops. These are the dress ones." The attendant's smile did not move, but one eyebrow absolutely did. They lent him long pants from a back room, clearly a size too big, tied with a piece of rope. He waddled out, trying not to trip, flip-flops still slapping regretfully on the floor. Somewhere, his great-grandfather in a suit probably just adjusted his tie in the afterlife and whispered, "My guy, really?" On the cliffside terrace outside the prince's palace in Monaco, the sea sparkled like wealth in liquid form. A minimalist adventurer in plain black shorts, plain black tee, and tiny crossbody bag waited for entry to a formal tour. When told his shorts weren't appropriate for the afternoon audience hall, he blinked and said, "But this is my entire wardrobe," like philosophically. The security guard, who'd clearly heard every excuse ever, just pointed at a small shop selling long linen pants. He stared at the price tag, weighing ideology versus fabric like it was a TED Talk. 5 minutes later, he walked back in, pants on, sole slightly heavier. The silence around him said, yeah. Sometimes the palace wins the debate before it even starts. In the Royal Palace Amsterdam reception hall, the marble echoed every footstep, every whisper, every bad choice. Complainer Dad had managed a collared shirt but paired it with bright gym shorts that practically shouted in neon. When staff explained he'd need full-length trousers to continue the tour, he groaned, "You're telling me the king cares about my knees?" His daughter buried her face in her hands, while his wife held out a pair of emergency travel pants from the backpack. He changed, muttering about rigid systems and over-regulation for tourists who paid good money. The group shuffled forward, pretending not to hear the running commentary. Outside, the rain tapped the windows like, "Bro, even the weather is wearing full length today." Topkapi Palace in Istanbul felt like walking through layers of time, courtyards stacked with stories and quiet rules. A movie fanatic in a faux medieval tunic and plastic royal cape had clearly misunderstood historic site visit as live-action roleplay. Security stopped him gently and explained the palace wasn't a costume party, especially not near the more sacred areas, and he said, "But I thought they'd appreciate my commitment to the vibe." A nearby local guide pinched the bridge of his nose like he'd seen this exact movie too many times. They asked him to remove the cape and tone it down before entering. He folded it sadly, stuffing it into his backpack like a defeated extra. Local wisdom floated in the air. The past doesn't need you to cosplay it, just respect it. Jaipur's city palace glowed pink under the heat, with peacocks yelling like unpaid background actors. A honeymoon couple arrived matching. Her in a strapless floral dress, him in a tank and shorts, holding hands like rules wouldn't dare interrupt romance. The guard pointed at the sign showing covered shoulders for certain rooms, and the bride said, "But I bought this dress just for palace photos." The guide offered shawls and scarves, explaining softly that photos came second, respect came first. They wrapped up awkwardly, still holding hands, now looking like two curtain bundles walking through history. They still got their romantic shots, just with more fabric and less rebellion. Bro, turns out, long sleeves don't kill the vibe. Entitlement does. The royal palace in Brussels had that serious, polished air, like even the doorknobs paid taxes. A loud Texas guy rolled up in a sleeveless denim vest, huge belt buckle, and cowboy hat tilted like a question mark. When the guard mentioned covering shoulders inside certain rooms, he grinned and said, "So the hat's fine, but my majestic arms aren't." The guard, absolutely done with majestic arms, handed him a simple jacket from the loan rack. He slipped it on, hat still perfectly tilted, swagger slightly reduced, but not fully defeated. A couple behind him giggled, trying to pretend they weren't taking mental notes. Sometimes the dress code doesn't break your personality. It just asks it to wear sleeves. At St. Peter's, late afternoon light poured over the square, while volunteers quietly handed out those big, crinkly, cover-up ponchos. A first-time traveler in short shorts and a cropped tee accepted one, then asked, "So this is like the VIP robe, right?" The volunteer smiled kindly and explained it was simply to respect the holy space. Nothing fancy, nothing exclusive. She looked around, realizing hundreds of people were wearing the exact same thing, like a very modest flash mob. She pulled it on, tugged the hood up, and laughed at herself, actually blushing. Her friend whispered, "Congrats, you just discovered the basic membership tier of respect." Sarcastic or not, that line landed softer than any rule sign ever could.